Hi, welcome to another episode of the Out of Office Club. Today, I wanted to do something maybe a bit different, something I also said I was going to do more. But today I want to talk a bit more about some fun travel experiences that I've had. Some of the more, I don't want to say scary, but more stressful ones that I've had. Because a lot of people, of course, ask me, oh, like, what is your favorite country that you've been to, or most fun thing you've done? But a lot of people sometimes also wonder, okay, but what went wrong and how did you handle those moments? Because I've been traveling now for 10 years, and for the past 2 years I've traveled full time. So I definitely can see and I notice how I've made less and less mistakes, but still travel sometimes is just a bit inconvenient. Things happen, surprises happen, and you can't always prepare well. But I would say most of my mistakes have been from just a bit of ignorance, laziness, being unprepared, not planning well. So I just thought I was gonna share a couple fun stories because as you'll probably notice, in my 10 years of traveling, nothing has gone terribly wrong. I think I've been very lucky with how everything went, and even moments that maybe weren't that safe or weren't that great, they did turn out well. And of course, that's not the case for everyone, and shit happens when you travel, and it's good to be aware of that. But I have been, let's say, lucky enough that nothing major has happened, and I've always been fine. But I still want to talk about some of the experiences that didn't go very well, just to give you an idea of the things that could happen when you go in solo travel. Give you a laugh. Feel free to comment after about how stupid that was, because I know, okay? I 100% know. Also, I am still in Greece, in case you're wondering. You probably see the same background as last week if you're watching this on YouTube. And this is it's going to be my last week here. So we've got one more week and then I go somewhere else in Greece, which I'm very excited for. And the past week has been really fun, like very intense. And a bit of a sidestep maybe, but I've noticed, especially with co-livings, there's such a big difference in the type of co-living. So the one I had in Barcelona before this, 2 weeks ago, was very relaxed. There was a community manager. People came and went as they wanted, so it was no set like date where everyone arrived and left. There weren't that many events. Of course, that's also up to the group mainly. If the group says, hey, we want the community manager to organize some things, or we want to organize things ourselves, you can. But there wasn't anything set apart from a community lunch every week, and the rest was kind of just up to you what you wanted to do. And that was very relaxing. It was really nice. I ended up doing a lot with my group, so for me it was completely fine. But this co-living experience is very different. It's more an actual trip that they've planned. So everyone arrived on the same day and is also going to leave on the same day. And everything we do in between is planned by the organizers. So it's not necessarily community managers in that sense, because it is their co-living, it's their company. So they're a lot more invested and really part of the group. And they organize a lot. So that just means that the whole 2 weeks kind of goes by really fast, because it's Monday to Friday, it's working. But then in the evening, it's often an event, or we all go out for dinner. And now the whole weekend's full as well. So right after this, I'm going to go rafting, and then there's a wine tasting. So very excited for this. But yeah, very different experience from Barcelona, and even from the one I did last year or 2 years ago. But it is really good. I do really enjoy it, but it is intense. So I've got 45 minutes and then I have to go get ready and go rafting. But I don't think this podcast will last that long, don't you worry. I thought maybe I've shared enough kind of more practical things and experiences from places that I just wanted to talk about some stories that happened while traveling. So most of these stories, I will say, happened when I first started traveling. Again, I just made so many more mistakes then. And I also traveled very differently. I've also noticed when I started traveling and I backpacked, it was a lot more chaotic. I moved places every 3 to 4 days. I stayed in hostels. Everything was just more chaotic and messy. And right now I travel very slowly. I just have my suitcase. I work a lot. So the places I stay in are generally my own Airbnb or apartment, which means that my day to day is just not as chaotic. So that also means not as much happens, like in a good way. Not as many chaotic things happen. Things don't really go wrong as much. So yeah, let me tell you about some of the things that happened back when I was 18, which is now 10 years ago. Yes, that's when I started traveling, which is crazy to say, or crazy to think that that's already 10 years ago. To give you an idea of what can happen when you solo travel. So I think one of the main ones that I talk about, or that I love to tell as well, because this story is both like wholesome, dangerous, a bit reckless, but had a really good ending. So I really, really like to tell it. I was in Thailand at that moment. I'd already been traveling for about 3 months. And I arrived in Thailand, went to one of the islands, and there I met some people who were like, hey, if you come back tomorrow to this spot where I did a snorkel tour, you can come with us, we'll do another little boat trip, and then we'll go out for dinner, maybe some drinks. I was like, great, sounds perfect. So I went out and from my hostel to that spot where we then hung out, all of us, and we went out for dinner. In the evening, not many people were left. A lot of people just left and went back to their hotel or hostel. But at some point, it was just me and one other person. And I met some people in the club or in the bar that we were at, and I was chatting with them. And at some point, I looked back, and the person that was left from the group was gone. And I was like, oh, okay, well, happens. So I went to go and look for him. And then someone else came up to me and said, oh yeah, your friend, he's gone. He was kicked out by the bouncer because he was too drunk and he left. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I should try and at least find him to see if he's all right, help him get home somehow. So I walked outside and I looked around, but I could not find him anywhere. I didn't have his number. I didn't have his social media. So I was like, well, I guess I'm just gonna go home as well. Now my idea was, I think it was like 2 a.m. at that time, and my idea was to just get a taxi and go home, because the village I stayed in was about half an hour drive from this little village. But it was 2 a.m. I was walking around. I could not find a taxi anywhere. And in Thailand, they're generally everywhere. But even there was no tuk-tuks, there was no taxis, there was nothing. So I walked into a hostel and I said, hey, can you help me? I'm looking for a taxi. I need to get back to this village. I think, had a flight or not, a boat, I think, the next day. So I really had to get back because I still had to pack and I had to get up early to get to this boat. And they're like, oh, so sorry, but there are no taxis until 9 a.m. It was just quite a remote place. So either everyone kind of arrived there before or they left earlier. But during the night, there was no taxis really in or out. So there was no way for me to get home. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just sat outside the hostel thinking. They gave me a glass of water. And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, okay, I've got a couple options. I could either stay at this hostel if they'll let me, because I don't have my passport. So that was a bit tricky. Plus, they said taxis don't drive till like 9 a.m. And I'm pretty sure that I had to leave at like 9 from my hostel to make it to my boat. So timing wise, that wasn't great. Or I think, well, actually was my other option. I think just wait, really. Stay at that hostel or wait. But no option was great. I wasn't panicking yet, but I was like, this is not ideal. This is not great. And then while I was sitting there sipping my water, the guy from the hostel walks out and goes, oh, well, where do you need to go? I was like, I need to go to that village. And he went, okay, wait. I was like, okay. And he left. And then I think 10, 15 minutes later, he comes back. He's like, okay, I called someone. Just wait. And then a friend of his shows up. I guess a friend of his, I don't know, on a scooter or moped. And looks at me and goes, well, for like 200 or 300 baht, I'll bring you to that village. And I said yes, which maybe wasn't the best idea because keep in mind it was 2 or 3 a.m. at the time. The drive was half an hour through the jungle. Wasn't like a city. It was just that me and this guy I didn't know. But I did say yes because I did trust it. Because one, he knew the guy from the hostel. He asked for money, which was a really good sign. I got a good vibe, you know. So I said yes. Got on the back of his moped, and he started driving. And I had no way to check where we were because, of course, there wasn't any data. I didn't have connection, so I couldn't check if we were going the right way. I had no clue. It was through the middle of the jungle. I just had to trust that this man was going to bring me home. And at some point, he stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. And I did remember thinking, oh, shit. Okay, this is not good. But we got off. And then he looked at me and said, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to get some gas, but do you want something to drink? I was like, no, thank you. And then, so everything was all right. And then we kept driving. He dropped me off at my hostel. I gave him, I think, an extra 100 or 200 baht, and he like counted it. And he even said like, oh, you gave me too much. I was like, oh, just please take it. Like, I'm so happy that you brought me here safe and in the middle of the night, basically. And I now had to go all the way back. So it worked out. Would I recommend it? Definitely not. Don't do that. It's quite stupid. But sometimes I guess you go with your gut. And my gut feeling was like, this is all right. I feel safe. I mean, it could have gone very differently, but I was like, this is right. I can do this. I will be okay. So that was decent. Later on that trip, I was in Australia, and a bit of something kind of similar happened where I didn't have to go different villages, but I got locked out of my own hostel. So what happened was somehow that hostel was a bit messy and no one really locked the doors, which, yeah, safety-wise isn't great, but no one really locked the doors. So I was going to go outside just for a quick bite. Like, I literally was so lazy. I went to McDonald's. I was like, I'm going to get a bite and then I'm going to go back. While I sat at McDonald's, I think I called my family, so I was speaking in Dutch. And then when I hung up, a guy 2 tables over was like, oh, actually, I'm Dutch. I just arrived. Like, what do you think? Do you have any tips? You know, and we just started a conversation. And then we went to a bar. So I ended up staying out till about 2 a.m., which was not the plan. So then I walked back to my hostel and I realized the doors closed, locked. I did not have a key. All I had with me was my phone, and I think I had 5% battery left. I did have my passport, but that was it. And I think probably some money or a bank card, because I definitely would have had that. But yeah, that's all I had. I knocked on the door. There was no doorbell, but I knocked. But it was immediately when you opened the door, there was a staircase up and then another door. So probably one no one heard. Plus it's a bit sketchy to open the door at 2 a.m. So also get that no one opened. And also then I was like, okay, I sat down in front of the hostel. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And then I decided, okay, I'm going to wait here for maximum 1 hour because it was busy enough and I felt safe enough to stay there at night for maximum 1 hour, maybe even less. Just in case someone comes back or leaves, I can get in. If that doesn't happen, because it was also getting cold, I'm going to go and search for different accommodation. I have my passport and I have some money, so that should be all right. Although I was also on a budget and it was going to hurt my budget quite a lot, especially in Australia. But as I said, I will not spend a whole night outside on the streets if I don't have to. So I waited for an hour, nothing happened. And then I started walking and I thought, okay, what is the best route for me to walk with the highest probability of finding either a hostel or a hotel that would still be open and has like 24-hour reception, because that's another issue then if you want to check in somewhere at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And I decided, okay, probably my best bet is the main train station. I think I was in Sydney at the time. And I roughly knew without using my phone, because my battery was almost dead, where that was. Because I figured around there, they'll probably have most hotels and hostels with 24-hour reception in case someone arrives late. And as I was walking, I checked out some hotels that were very expensive, but I was like, okay, this could be an option in case I find nothing else. And then as soon as I arrived at the train station, which wasn't that far, luckily, I realized there was a hostel chain there that had 24-hour reception because I recognized the brand. So yeah, I just walked in there. I was like, hey, I need a room. The guy was like, why are you here? Why do you not have a bag? I was like, I got locked out of my hostel, which he thought was funny. I did not at the time. But yeah, I got a bed, slept there for one night, slept awful, of course, because I had nothing with me, couldn't brush my teeth, it was disgusting. And then the next morning, walked back to my hostel, door was open, went back in, took a nap, showered. Yeah, that was also just, again, poor planning. And actually, one other story that I'll tell you, which I thought, again, was just me being a bit impulsive sometimes, adventurous or just chaotic, I don't know how you want to call it. This also happened in Thailand. I decided last minute to go to Koh Phangan for the full moon party. Now, was that a really good plan? Probably not. I left the day of. I got there the minute the party started. I did have a great time though. I wasn't a really big party goer, but I did have a good time. But then after 3 days in my hostel, I went out for breakfast and I came back. And I think I went to the beach with some people. I came back and there was a sign on my door from my hostel that just said closed. I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I have 2 more nights here. So I walk in, the door was open. The reception completely cleared. There was nothing left of the reception. I checked in the rooms, everyone had left. The only room was was mine, and where there was still stuff, it was just my stuff, and that was it. Everyone else in the hostel had left somehow. And I was like, shit. And I honestly, I didn't feel comfortable or safe staying there. So I was like, fuck, I don't want to stay here in an empty hostel. I can lock my door, but not the downstairs area. It's just weird to me that everyone had left. And I think there was a little note that was like, oh, you can go here for your deposit or if you want to check out, but that was quite far. I was like, no, this is, I don't like this. I really don't like this. So I walked outside. I went to a little travel agency right outside the door. And I was like, hey, what is the first boat out of here? Like, where can I go? And they said, well, in half an hour, there's a boat to this other island. I was like, yeah, great, book it. So I had 5 minutes to pack my bag. I just stuffed everything in there. That was stressful. Completely like drenched in sweat, walked outside just as the taxi pulled up to bring us to the boat, threw that in, went on the boat. And then I think it was a good 4 hours on that boat or maybe longer. But I did arrive there just after it gone dark. And on the boat, I didn't have reception. When I got there, barely had reception. So I couldn't check for hostels or hotels. I couldn't really book anything. And I arrived on my own. I didn't travel in with anyone. So I arrived on that island with no hostel, no plan, no accommodation. I had nothing. So I started walking around and I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna, any hostel I see, I'm gonna walk in. And of course there were quite a few, but they were all full. I guess lots of people went then from Koh Phangan, where the full moon party was, to that other island. I forgot the name. But everything was full. I was like, shit. I was like, no, I don't want to have to spend a night outside. So then a lady walked up to me and she went, oh, do you need a room? And I was like, yes. And anytime someone walks up to me, I'm suspicious because yes, a lot of people want to help, but also when someone comes up to you, generally they want something or they might have a different plan. Or an alternative motive. So generally I don't really trust that very much. But she came up to me and said, do you need accommodation? I was like, yes. And truly I had no option. So she's like, well, I work at this like bungalow park, resort kind of deal. It's 5-minute walk. We still have room. I was like, okay. So I followed her and she took me to this park or resort, whatever it was. And she's like, well, yeah, for like It wasn't that expensive, more expensive than a hostel, but you can have your own room. It's got a fan, it doesn't have AC, but you can stay here. I was like, okay. It all looked legit enough. What I did find a bit strange was they gave me a lock, like a padlock for my door with a key. And I remember thinking, but this is your lock and I get one key and you probably have the spare key. So I just took it and I was like, okay. Went to my room, placed everything down. I used my own padlock to lock my door, which had a number code, because I was not going to use someone else's. So that is definitely also a tip. Bring your own locks. It is going to save you when you need to lock your own doors, when you have a little safe in your room, you can lock it. And even just your luggage, or if you go to the gym, it's good for everything. And really try to get one with a code combination, not with the key. You don't want to lose that key. And at least it's just with numbers, you'll always be fine and you'll never lose it and you always have access. So that, definitely bring a padlock, 2 or 3 even, in like different sizes preferably as well, so that there's always one that fits, because sometimes the safes that you get in the hostel are very small. Well, then for the door you need a bigger one. But yeah, that I did sleep decent, woke up the next day, showered, packed, and then left and went somewhere else, because then I actually had Wi-Fi to book a hostel. But yeah, as you can see, those 3 instances were kind of me being a bit unplanned, a bit more spontaneous things that I just did, but also just happened. Like, I could not have known that my hostel was just going to close, even though I still had 2 days booked. But those things kind of happen. And I think what helped me a lot was how calm I stayed. Don't get me wrong, I was a bit panicky and I was a bit like, oh shit, what am I going to do? But I did stay calm and I was like, okay, I've got options, you know? And somehow it did always work out, and someone was able to help me in whatever way, or I was able to fix it myself. And those are stories that I look back on those stories fondly. I think they were fun in the end, of course, also because everything worked out. Did I have anything bad happen? Not really. There's a couple things that people stole from me in hostels. I was very careful with my belongings. Again, get a lock, put everything that is valuable in a safe at all times. But in one hostel, I think it was also in Australia, and I think it really surprised me because I came back because someone had stolen my shoes and my towel. I was like, of all things that you could steal, why would you want someone else's dirty towel and used up shoes? Because those had, I think, a hole in the bottom, like they were done anyway, so I wasn't very sad. It was just annoying that I had to go and buy a new towel, especially like the microfiber ones. But yeah, that was just a bit strange. I've luckily also never had any issues with health. I never had to go to a hospital abroad. I think that would freak me out a little bit, just because everything works different in different countries, but I've been lucky there. My bags always arrived. The only time they did not arrive was on my way back home, so that it just didn't matter so much. It just felt a bit strange. I just had a 6-month trip around the world with my backpack. I had my backpack with me everywhere. And then I come home, and because that was my first trip, my whole family and friends were there to pick me up. And then I realized that they'd forgotten my bag, or at least it wasn't there. So I went to the counter and I described my bag, and they're like, no worries, we'll find it, we'll send it to you. But that meant I walked out of the Rivals with just my backpack, normal like small backpack, instead of my massive backpack, you know what I mean? And that felt a bit weird, because then it almost looked like I went away for the weekend, and now I had 20 people with like a banner and everything cheer when I walked out, so that I didn't like. Plus then I couldn't really show them in the moment like some of the things I'd collected or got them as souvenirs. Yeah, but In general, I think most of my travels have gone pretty well. What else happened? Well, a couple things happened when I was in my camper, like when my camper broke down, or I was in a bit sketchy situations with other people, or even just sleeping, like wild camping, sleeping in different spots. But I'll do that in a different video because I really want to tell you about how van life was. I think also the past week I've somehow talked about it a bit more with people. And people always say that they want to try it and what it was like and why I don't have my camper anymore, because I did build it and I had it for a year and a half before I sold it. So I want to do an episode basically only about this and my experience with van life. And I want to do one episode a bit more about safety, and then especially for women, because it is just very, very different to travel alone as a woman as it is compared to a man. And I've seen that myself with solo travelers. I've heard the stories from both men and women. I've noticed the difference myself when I travel alone versus when I'm with a man. So I want to go over this because I would hate for a woman to not go solo travel because of fear. So I want to give you my perspective on that and how it was and what I learned and what I recommend. And I think it could be a really good video, maybe also for men to just understand that the experience for us as women traveling alone is very different. And to hear what we can have to manage and deal with on top of just the normal travel stress. But that is for another video, because I feel like that is a completely different topic, and everyone's experience in that will be different. But yeah, I hope that you liked to hear a bit more of my travel stories where things didn't go as planned. I hope it gives you some inspiration to also maybe plan just a tiny bit more than I have, because those moments I don't think were smart. But I managed, and I think that's also the part of traveling, partially because you, without realizing, but you put yourself in these situations that you had no control over, you couldn't have planned for, really, or somewhat. And then you also notice that you actually can handle so much more than you think. Like, I was only 18, but I didn't panic. I figured it out. I managed by myself. And it also gave me a lot of confidence to see how I reacted in those situations, and that I handled it a lot better than I thought I might. It helped me afterwards in other travel situations. It was just, I think people underestimate how much they can do and how great at problem solving you probably are without realizing. And also just how helpful other people are, and that no situation is truly unsolvable. And again, everything I've experienced during my travels has been generally really positive, and nothing really bad has happened. And I know that that's not a guarantee, and there is risks to traveling, so just please keep that in mind. I don't want anyone to have a naive idea of traveling, but also look at my story and go, okay, in 10 years, if that's the worst that's happened, I think I can give it a go. So these experiences, I think they help you grow and they help you build confidence. And they've only helped me, really. Did I tell my family about them when they happened? Definitely not. Always after, when I was safe and good and fine. But yeah, that's I think it for today. Again, I've got some cool plans for the next episodes. I really hope, will also have a guest at some point, because in all these co-livings and in general during my travels, I meet so many interesting people, and not everyone is super active on social media or has a podcast, but they do have really amazing stories. So I'm really hoping that maybe for next week, I can talk to someone who's here, who I think has some really interesting insights in digital nomad life and traveling in general. So yeah, there's a lot of really fun stuff upcoming. And again, if you have any ideas, any specific questions, any feedback even, please let me know. Comment wherever it is that you're listening or watching. DM me on Instagram. It doesn't matter. I basically check all of the comments and DMs. So do that. Because of course I want this podcast to be helpful, and if I can answer some specific questions, that would be great. That is it for now. Thank you so much for listening and watching this. Again, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe, rate. It really helps me grow. And otherwise, I will see you next week. Thank you so much.